And so if you want to grow and be successful with anything, whether it's entrepreneurship, music, art, filmmaking, whatever, you'd be well suited to spend a lot of time thinking about how you can build your personal brand. You want your audience to fall in love with you, not necessarily your craft or the thing that you do, right? And then when you can build that, like Taylor Swift did, and you can have an audience of raving fans that just love you. And by the way, even if it's not like the whole world knows about you, if you have 1,000 people or 10,000 people who love you and also love your music, but they love you, and it doesn't matter what you do. If you switch from country to pop music, that's totally fine, and then to folk music, like you do whatever you want. They're gonna follow you because they're endeared to you as a brand, you as a person. They have a relationship with you more so than your music, your craft, or the thing that you do.
Welcome to the podcast today. My special guest is Eric Thayne, who is a multi-talented piano guy, but he has really found his niche in doing short-form content and video. Eric, I know you've had a ton of experience in helping, creators in general, artists. I mean, you started out as a recording studio guy, but you've really kind of evolved into this almost, I don't know, I call you the coach of a lot of these creators that do video content. And you probably, I don't know whether there's an actual world record for this, but I know you've done a lot of how many videos can we actually film in one day. And I've got some crazy stories that way. So I'm excited to chat with you. I know for our listeners, Eric is one of those guys that is about as down to earth as they come, but he's also been up on the funnel hacking live stage, teaching thousands of people, and just very, very willing to share of his time and give some advice. So welcome, Eric.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
So Eric, let's dive in. Let's kind of rewind the clock back to when you started out as a musician. I want people to kind of just understand your background and as a musician. And the whole idea is, okay, finding success as a musician is sometimes difficult. And your story is actually you kind of stepped away a little bit from the music. So, share your journey, how you got there, and then we'll tie this back in on how music
Yeah.
part of your life.
Yeah, so I've been playing music ever since I was very young, 6 or 7 years old. Started playing the piano, and family was very musical, and parents supported that and like wanted us to learn. And so I would play the piano and take piano lessons and learned. And you go to piano lessons, and they always want to teach you classical music. And for whatever reason, like classic, it just was never interesting to me. I did the basic piano lessons, and I got into more advanced stuff, and then we're playing Chopin and Beethoven and stuff. And I would never practice. I could play pretty well. I never practiced the piano. Like you just couldn't get me to do it. And I know myself better now, but that was a clear sign that I just wasn't interested in what we were doing. All right. And so it was just really hard. I would always procrastinate, couldn't get myself to practice. I would show up to the lessons not having practiced. And then my parents are like, "What are we even paying for this for?" And the whole thing, right? And it wasn't until I was 15 years old. So at this point, I'm going on what, like 8 years of piano lessons. I'm 15 years old. I got a piano teacher who changed everything for me. And this piano teacher, we started out the same way. We got in, and he started pulling up classical music, and I started playing it. But he actually listened to me, and I don't really like playing this music. Like, he's like, "Well, what kind of music do you enjoy?" And I was like, "Well, more like new age piano." And so, like, if you know John Schmidt or Lori Line or Jim Brickman or like those guys, like that was the kind of music that I really enjoyed playing. And he's like, "Okay, well then let's just play some of that." And so he started pulling up some of that music for me and having me play it. And that, I enjoyed that a lot more, and I was able to start playing those songs. And so John Schmidt was like an idol of mine, and like I loved his music, and I would play through all of his books and got really good at his songs and everything. And one day I walked into my piano lesson with this guy, and he was playing this song on the piano that was just beautiful, like nothing I'd ever heard before. And I was like, "What is that? Like that was amazing." And he's like, "Oh, I was just making it up as I was playing." And I was like, "What? You can do that? Like that's a thing that people can do?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's just improv." And I said, "That is what I want to learn how to do." I was like, that's it. Like that's what I want to know how to do." And he's like, "Yeah, I can teach you how to do that." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And the whole piano lesson, the whole thing shifted, right? And I started learning how to play improv on the piano. And so he would put music in front of me, And he would say, okay, I want you to play this music. I want you to play it in time, but I don't want you to sight read it. I want you to look at just like the fundamental notes that you can find throughout it that you need to hit. And then I want you to improv something that is related to or similar to what you're looking at. And I was like, okay. And the first few times it was really clunky and I couldn't do it. And like his rule was I wasn't allowed to stop. So I had to just keep playing. And it was like really hard at first. But after a while I started getting better and better and better at it. And it got to the point where, now I can sit out on the piano and I can just play. Like I'll just play my feelings, right? If I'm feeling sad, I'll play something sad. If I'm playing like whatever I feel, I can just sit down and play. And it's actually a really cool like creative expression for me. And so he taught me how to do that, and I learned piano that way. I started writing music. I was always like creative in the composition and everything. Started coming up with my own songs. Wrote some sheet music. Recorded a couple albums. This is now going into college and everything. And then what I ended up doing is I ended up starting a YouTube channel that I was like, I want to like pursue music and try to make this happen and see like what could happen with this. And I started a YouTube channel where I would do mashups and covers. And so we would take a song that was popular, for example, and I'd write an arrangement of it, and then I would go and record all of the instruments, the piano and the guitar and the drums and the synths and all that stuff. And then I would bring singers in because I'm not a singer, never been able to sing really well. So I'd bring singers in, they would sing the track, and then I would record it, mix and master, and then I would go and shoot and edit the video. So I was learning video production at the same time. And then we put these things together and I put them on my YouTube channel. And it actually like took off pretty well. Like over the course of a couple of years, I gained about like 30,000 subscribers. Like for a thing that I was just doing on the side, it wasn't bad. And it was never meant to make money. I just did it for fun. But I did these videos, and then we started doing mashups where we would take like 20 songs from the whole year that were like the Billboard top chart songs, and then we would mash them all up together and we do these crazy videos and everything. And that whole experience got me connected with people and started getting me eyeballs and people like knowing who I was. And like I started building this community of things that started happening. And it was crazy. Like some of the stuff that happened, like some of the people that I got to work with, some of the experiences that I had. But I think like one of probably like the culminating moment of it for me was, I told you that like John Schmidt was like an idol of mine and I grew up playing all his music. Well, I actually got to open for him at a concert, right? So I actually played with John Schmidt and got to meet him backstage and everything, and that was the coolest. For anybody that doesn't know who John Schmidt is, you probably heard of the Piano Guys, right? Who on YouTube now are really popular. He's the pianist. And so I actually got to play with John Schmidt and do a concert with him, which was
John
really
is
cool.
probably one of the coolest human beings in general out there.
Very
I,
good guy.
I grew up kind of really enjoying his music as well. I'd not heard of him until I'd gotten back from Argentina, but when I worked at Bank of Utah, we ended up sponsoring his shows. So
Mm.
through a couple of mutual connections, I ended up having lunch with him, and we sponsored his Christmas concert for several years. And I still remember being at a high school playing upside down on a two piano duet with him.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
when nobody knew who John Schmidt was. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's just, it's one of those where I think you talked about Jim Brickman. I think for every musician, there's these individuals that inspire kind of that next group, and Piano Guys for sure. I mean, cello sales have probably gone through the roof since Piano Guys came.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So you were doing videos, and so that, and just kind of deconstructing what you said there. I think it's awesome, and for the piano teachers out there that might be hearing this, I think it's really important that they recognize and be able to recognize, hey, classical's maybe not the cool thing, and being able to have people play that music that they like. And I'm finding that there's more and more that are starting to teach improv, but for a long time, just the typical classical path is all that was taught, and there was no YouTube back 20 years ago to be able to give you the
Right.
lights or the lights to play the video game version of whatever the songs were. So it's definitely a lot
I
easier.
think the reason why we all love classical is because it teaches you the chops, right? It builds your muscles. It is, it's a solid foundation of piano skills. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I did do it for a long time, and that was how I initially learned. But I think that like, piano teachers should be, I'm really grateful for this piano teacher who recognized like what I was interested in and what I really wanted to do and helped me go and do that because rather than me like being forced into one vein of creating classical music, and then honestly, probably only ever becoming mediocre at it because I didn't love it. He actually helped channel my talent into what I was passionate about and what I was frankly good at, and helped me to become uh I would say world class, like I don't know, it sounds like weird, but like world class at it, right? To like become really good at it to where like I could actually perform, and I performed and I created music and like did all this stuff that got a lot of attention. And like those things happened because like I focused on the thing that I was actually passionate about. So I think that's important.
Right. Well, and just I think just fine. I think as I look back on my early days in piano, and I think this is almost true of probably 99% of piano students, is most of the time when we're that 14 or 16-year-old kid, we're not mature enough to recognize that there's a whole bunch of other types of music we can play, and we just want to fight our mom on practicing. It's like, nah,
Hmm.
I didn't. I rarely practiced as well, and I wish I had practiced and been more mature and be like, hey, if I can learn how to play Chopin, I'm going to be able to do a whole lot of other stuff. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest tip I think for teenagers. If I can just tell them like, look, be more mature about this and realize you're laying a foundation. And I think the other motivation I had as a teenager is when I was told that girls like guys who play piano. That was a motivator as well, right?
That was the big motivation, right?
So okay, so you were, I mean, you really had a pretty successful kind of beginnings of a career. I mean, not very few people ever even go to the point where they were making videos and doing what you're doing. So what was it that caused you to kind of step away from music, or kind of take a fork in the road that has taken you a little bit away from music? Because I can tell you love it. It shows on your face how much you enjoy the music side.
Yeah, it's not that I've been taken away from music. Like I still play, I still love to write music, and we have a piano in our house, and I love listening to music, I love playing the drums, I love playing the guitar. Like I do still play. In fact, I've found myself lately actually getting more into wanting to write more music and wanting to record more music and do some of those things. So I feel like I've come back into it. And I'll tell you kind of like what happened. I wouldn't want this to like discourage anybody who wants to like be a musician professionally. It's just like you have to make decisions for yourself. And like for me, I never felt like it was really in the cards. The YouTube channel and that whole era was probably the closest I ever got to it. But I think even then, like I was just doing it for fun. I never really wanted to like be a full-time musician. I've always been very entrepreneurial from when I was very young. I started my first business when I was 13 years old doing graphic design, and then that turned into web development and iPhone development and branding, and then went to school for it, and then started the recording studio, started making those videos, started getting into video production. So like I've been entrepreneurial for my entire life, and my entrepreneurial ventures were always in creative realms because that was what I loved, that's what I was passionate about. And so I got into the music thing. I started a recording studio, started helping musicians, and we helped a lot of musicians to become very successful just by using content, by using videos, by producing covers, by making YouTube videos, by using social media video content to help them to be successful. We had one artist that we worked with that we did quite a few videos for, and we had some of them go viral and get millions of views. We had one of her videos, one of her songs actually ended up like charting on the Billboard charts in the UK for like the singer-songwriter charts, like did really well. She ended up becoming a contestant on The Voice. She was like top 10 on American Idol. Like all this stuff happened, but and not that, I did all of it, right? She's worked very hard, but like a lot of the catalyst was her creating content and putting herself out there. And I think what's really interesting about that is that the world that we live in, and this was 10 years ago, right? The world that we live in now, especially even more so, is so like the traditional means of distribution and having to get in with a record label and a distribution company and all of those things, like all those walls are falling down. And it's becoming more and more possible for individual creators, whether you're a musician or an entrepreneur or whatever, to build your own thing and build your own audience and have your own distribution and become successful as a musician, as an artist, as a creator than it ever has been before. And I think that's what's really incredible. So like for me, while I actually transitioned from making music into making YouTube videos, and then I started to realize that I really enjoyed the video side of it more so, at least as a business opportunity. And so then I got into the video side of it, and I started a production agency, and I started working with these musicians, and then took a whole detour into online courses and internet marketing, and learned all of that, and got into ClickFunnels world, and did all of those things. But now I've actually come back to video production, and I'm actually almost feels like I'm rediscovering my creativity. So who knows where I'll go from here. But regardless of whether you're a musician or you're a creator, an artist, or whatever it is, the fact that like by creating content and putting yourself out there and sharing your talent and your voice with the world, you can build an audience by yourself that you can bypass all of the distribution channels and all the the black the red tape that that traditionally has been in there, especially in the music industry. It actually makes it so that you can be very successful on your own as an individual, and I think that's really like the power of today's day and age.
Well, and I think a lot of the labels aren't even interested in talking to you unless you've built that following.
Yeah.
What's been so fun to see is, not to knock the labels, because I think there's a good manager, and when you're tied in with the label, when it's right, there's definitely things that those labels can provide to you. But in the past, I mean, they'd take 90% of any money that was made, and if you were lucky to get left with 10 cents, that was good. And it's
Mhm.
almost flipped the other direction now. But the reality is, I mean, I look at my career path, and I lasted 2 days in the music program at the university I went to, and I ended up going and changing my major and dropping out. And I was on the path thinking, oh, I want to go be like Hans Zimmer and write John Williams type scores and do
Mhm.
orchestra. And I found out I was going to have to take it was going to be third year, maybe fourth year of going to school, that I'd finally get to be allowed to do orchestra. And I'm like, I'm already published. This is stupid. I went over to the business
Yeah, yeah,
school and did marketing. And that, honestly, I think as a musician, the marketing stuff that I learned was more important than any of the music I could have learned as a classical, you know, studying musician. And I think that's something that a lot of musicians in general, and anybody who wants to be successful on their own, you've got to put in some time to learn about the marketing side, the funnels.
for
Even if
sure.
you don't think you want to be entrepreneurial, that's a game changing success factor that I see for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There's the business side of it, right? So I spent a lot of years working with not only musicians but also filmmakers, but creatives in general. And this is the one thing that most of them are missing is this idea that you get into wanting to just like do the thing that you do and
Hmm.
then forget like the marketing of the thing that you do, right? If you want to be successful doing the thing that you do, you got to figure out how to market it, right? And so there's a difference between like creatives and entrepreneurs, and this is how I define the difference. Creatives typically start with the solution. They start with here's the thing that I want to do. I love to make videos. I love to make music. I want to do this thing, right? And what creatives need to do if they want to be successful with that, if you want to make money and grow and like, and by the way, the purpose of making all that money as a creative is so that you can actually go to deeper and deeper levels of your craft. Like you won't be able to get there if you don't have some sort of funding, right? And so that's a really important thing. And but so most creatives start with the solution. What they need to do if you want to be successful is that you've got to go and find a problem that your solution solves, right? And so that's how you start thinking entrepreneurially as a creative. Is like I've got this thing that I love to do. If you're smart and you want to make money at it, you'll think, what's a problem? What's a pain point that I can solve in the marketplace using this thing? Entrepreneurs are very different. They start with the problem. Okay, so entrepreneurs, people who are really entrepreneurial, they don't care about what they do. They're not creatives. They're not like I want to make videos. They go, where's a problem that I can solve in the marketplace? And they start with that pain point. They find that pain point, and then they go and figure out a solution. And usually it's not even them doing the solution. They go and hire the team and bring the people together to orchestrate a solution to solve that problem. So where the entrepreneur lives on the problem side, the creative lives on the solution side. And so if you want to be, successful as a musician, you've got to figure out a pain point to solve with your solution. If you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, you've got to figure out the creative side of how to be innovative and original and like actually create a really good solution for that problem. And so yeah, for me and for my filmmakers and for the musicians that I've worked with, it's always been like, how can you learn just enough business skills to be able to be successful with this? Not that you have to completely dedicate your life to business, but recognize that if you want to be successful as a musician, if you want to be able to perform your craft at a high level, you're going to need to be successful. Otherwise, you're just going to be struggling forever. And in order to do that, you've got to learn the marketing and the sales aspect of it and understanding the industry of the music. And if you do that and you combine those two things, then it allows you to actually like grow and be successful in your craft.
Well, and I almost feel like musicians, especially, uh, almost have this arrogance that somehow, oh, I'm going to go write this song, and everybody's going to, the music or the art that I create is going to be so good that it's going to be a hit song, and everybody's going to care about it. And I don't know whether it's just a musician thing. I'm sure it's that way with a lot of people that create things.
Creatives, yeah.
I do think it's so critical for and I mean maybe it's go back to the being a teenager taking piano lessons and we were too grumpy or immature to realize, okay, if I learn this thing, then I'm going to be able to do the thing I really like to do. But I just feel like there's so many musicians that and happens, I see also as business owners, where people know they need to learn how to do Facebook ads, or they know they need to learn how to do video content, or all these little things that you don't have to be an expert at it, but you got to at least put in some time and learn it so that you can
Mhm.
know how to help the people around you be successful, so that you can have that craft or the thing you create get out to the world. And uh,
Yeah. I think creatives need to learn how to disassociate quality of their craft from making lots of money, right? It's this idea that if I just become the best at this, then I will also be the most successful. And that's not true in the slightest. The most, I mean, it's hard to quantify, right? But I would say that like probably the most talented musicians in the world, the ones who like really understand music better than anyone, are people you've never heard of, right? They're not the most successful. Look at Taylor Swift. Okay, we can I don't know if it's even arguable that Taylor Swift is the most successful musician of our time, at least. But it's really fascinating.
she just passed Frank Sinatra, right? So I guess we can argue she is now, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, even the NFL is like profiting off of her now. So, but there's all sorts of stuff going on with Taylor Swift. I think she's a really good case study in this exact idea, is that she's not. I mean, Taylor Swift's a good songwriter. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, she's a good singer. Is she the best singer in the world? No, right? Is she the best songwriter in the world? Probably not, right? Um, is she one of the best at marketing herself and branding herself as a musician and an artist? Yeah, probably. Like the moves that she makes, if you follow just like the calculated moves that she makes to promote herself, to brand herself, to whatever, or she and her team, together put together, it's incredible. And that's why she is what she is. That that mixed with a little bit of luck and a little bit of being in the right place at the right time and having enough talent is great. There's a lot of people out there, and I don't mean this to be disheartening for musicians, but like you have to at some level kind of just like put yourself in a real like perspective and a real worldview and recognize that like even if you're talented at what you do, you're not that special. And again, like I don't mean for that to hurt. This should actually be a relief to people to think that like, oh, you know what? Like to me, from on the outside looking at the music industry, there are a lot of talented musicians out there. Millions, hundreds of millions, right, in the world that are very talented, very good. And most of them are unheard of. And every day I'm listening to Spotify and it pops up a new song that I've never heard, and I'm like, this person's really good, and their voice is incredible, and the music is high quality. And I'm like, yeah, but nobody's ever heard of this person. So like, what is happening there? And the thing is, like, you've got so that's like the talent, the quality. The people that you've heard of are the ones that are the loudest. They say visibility beats ability, right? The ones who are getting the opportunities, the ones who are getting noticed, that are getting the attention, getting the eyeballs, are the ones who are making themselves visible, not the ones who have the highest ability. So if you're a musician and you are talented, like I said, this should be a relief for you. If you're a musician and you are very talented and you're good at what you do, I'm not saying you have to be the best in the world. Like I said, Taylor Swift's not the best in the world, but if you're good at what you do, the only key, and you're not successful, you're not famous or whatever you want to have, the only key is that you just need to get more visible. And like that's the connection. It's because you only have half of the equation right now. If you add in the other half of the equation, which I would recommend, just start creating content, just start talking about it, start sharing your talents online. you put in that other piece, and now things will start to click for you. But as long as you only have one piece of the equation, like you're never going to get there.
No. Well, and so advice, and this is for musicians, but I think this applies to even for the audio engineers and some of these composers out there that maybe aren't ever even the person that are going to uh, be looking to be the special one, that has all the followers or selling the albums. I think in general, just having more visibility and content about yourself is a key factor in finding that next gig and that next role. I'd love, just your feedback, because I know you're teaching people to create tons and tons of content, and I think the thing that a lot often that happens is like, I don't want to create content. I mean, you probably lived through it yourself. You're like, I don't want to, publish every day. I don't want to do content every day. I mean, I hate Facebook. I don't want to go on Facebook, and you don't want to have to, but what advice do you have for just people in the industry in general about, what do you coach people on to when it comes to putting social media stuff out there?
So I want to say first of all that like it's actually not so much about creating tons of content. Especially nowadays, like if you can just create like a little bit of like really high quality content, that's going to do so much more for you, especially as a creative. And that should help people because I think a lot of creatives like want to take time and be calculated and do things well. And so then this idea that like, oh, I have to post 8 times a day is just like it's like in denial of your craft, right? And so like we could just remove that. Like you don't have to do that. But if you can get to the point where you can post at least a few times a week of creative content on short form video or long form YouTube or whatever it is that you want to do, some really good like calculated content can be really really helpful. There's a few musicians out there that have done this really well. Like even on the higher end, if you watch like I don't know if you watch Charlie Puth on Instagram, like his videos that he shows some of the behind the scenes of his production process and how he's pulling songs together. He's one that is really cool. Ben Rector's another one that like my wife loves his music and his Instagram account is really good. Just the way he engages with his audience. Another one that's like amazing is Walk Off the Earth. I don't know if you ever watched them, but they're incredible. Just the way that they engage their audience and their community. So they'll come up with an idea for a song and they'll do like a creative rendition of it and then they'll ask the audience like what do you think the song should be about or like write lyrics and then they'll bring in people to help them out like we're looking for somebody to like rap on the second verse of this one and so submit all of your submissions and then like whichever one they choose ends up actually getting recorded on the song, the official song. And so they do stuff like that. They do, they became famous because they started doing cover songs where they would, if you've ever seen that video from a long time ago, where it's like 5 or 6 of them all playing the same guitar and they're playing Somebody That I Used to Know by Gautier. That song went viral, or that video went viral, and then they do a lot of stuff like that. It's like really creative musician things. And so they're creating content that is creative and fun and unique and shows you a behind the scenes of their process and also involves the people in the community. And so people follow them because they love them and their character and their personality and everything about them, not to mention their music. And now when they release a new song or whatever, they bring their audience along the journey with them. And then they build up all this hype towards this launch. And then they launch the track and then it goes gangbusters, right? All because of the content that they're creating, the marketing, the visibility that they're creating for their music.
There's nothing like bringing people along for the ride. I think, the music can be great, but unless you're along for the ride, it doesn't mean as much. I just the other night when you had Taylor Swift just, win the big award for the album of the year, but as she's getting up there, she had this hook in there like, "Hey, I'm actually excited to announce that I'm doing the next one." And so
Yeah.
oh, I mean, that was the bigger story than anything that happened on the Grammys. Yet now everybody's going to wonder, okay, for the next 3 months, as she builds up to this launch of her thing, she can pepper stuff in all the way along the way, and it's going to be, hundreds of millions of. I mean, it's brilliant, and I think there's a lot you can learn from that. Just
There's a really important like learning lesson there, principle there. And it's that Taylor Swift gets up and announces that she's writing her new album. I don't know what numbers are. I don't know if they'll even come out, but I'm guaranteeing you she's sold millions of copies of this album, if not tens of millions or hundreds of millions. I don't know how many albums she sells.
like she won the award. She's on stage, and then she says, "I'm excited to finally share this secret with everybody." and I've got an album that's going to be coming out in April. I mean, it's essentially, I think, done. I don't know that anybody knows as of yet, but she.
Yeah, well, so she's you can just imagine how many copies of that album that comes out in April she's sold, whether it's millions or tens of millions or whatever, like immediately like that, and nobody's even heard the music yet,
Mhm.
right? We don't even know what it sounds like. It could be an album of her just talking, like, and then she's selling all of this, and so it's a really interesting case study because if you think about it, like, so many musicians put so much emphasis on the music when, like in Taylor Swift's case, people don't even care about the music. Is the music good? Do they like the music? Yes. But they bought an album without hearing the music. So is it really the music that they care about, or is it just because they just love Taylor Swift? They just love her brand, her personality, her marketing, like what she's built. And ultimately, like everybody that I coach on content, whether they're a musician or an entrepreneur or whatever, I always drive home this point that it's in today's day and age, it's about the personal brand. The brand. It's the person behind the business. It's the person behind the music. It's the person behind the art. That is what people are fascinated in. That's what they care about. They want to know the person. They want to do business with people. They want to listen to musicians who are people. They want to watch art that is made by people. And that connection is what people are craving. And so if you want to grow and be successful with anything, whether it's entrepreneurship, music, art, filmmaking, whatever, you'd be well suited to spend a lot of time thinking about how you can build your personal brand. You want your audience to fall in love with you, not necessarily your craft or the thing that you do, right? And then when you can build that, like Taylor Swift did, and you can have an audience of raving fans that just love you. And by the way, even if it's not like the whole world knows about you, if you have 1,000 people or 10,000 people who love you and also love your music, but they love you, and it doesn't matter what you do. If you switch from country to pop music, that's totally fine, and then to folk music, like you do whatever you want. They're gonna follow you because they're endeared to you as a brand, you as a person. They have a relationship with you more so than your music, your craft, or the thing that you do.
Well, and as you say that, I mean, it's the person. I think some people, as they're trying to think, oh, I've got to be this, brand. The most important thing I can think of is you need to be you. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't, you got to be authentic and true to you, because if you start trying to put yourself out there and it's this fake, made up persona,
It's
it's
weird.
especially if you're doing content, it's going to eventually come out. So I mean, it's got to be truly you. And I think what's so cool is there's so much access to be able to share with the world now, that there's people out there that will like you no matter what you look like. Or I mean, as long as you're a good human being, there's people that will be attracted to you. And
Yeah. Yep.
I I think that's fantastic advice.
Yep.
What, as you look back on, kind of as you've grown as a musician and just a creator in general, what are some of the, if you could go back, let's just say you rewind the clock back 20 years and you could give yourself advice, what would you tell that younger version of you?
I would have started creating content sooner. Content around me. I think the mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs get into, no matter what kind of entrepreneur they are, is this idea of like they only create content as a tactic or a strategy for the thing that they're doing right now. And so if I were to like go back, I would have gone like back even before the YouTube days or the musician days or whatever, and just started creating content around like this is who I am and talking about not just the music, not just the filmmaking, not just the entrepreneurship, but all of it. The fact that like I was on stage a few months ago teaching 5,000 entrepreneurs and internet marketers about how to do stuff, and now I'm on a podcast teaching musicians. Like there are multiple facets of me. I've got this thing sitting next to me right now. I don't know if you've seen this that just came out from Apple. This is another passion of mine, right? This is the Apple Vision Pro, this VR headset, right? So like technology, and I'm like I'm fascinated by that and music and filmmaking and art, but also personal development and entrepreneurship and marketing and sales. And like those are all of those things make up who I am. And when you're building a personal brand, your personal brand is you. It's the combination of all those things, your hobbies, passions, interests, morals, values, beliefs, all that stuff that makes up who you are. That is your brand. And so it's really so much about like just start. being yourself, first of all, which I know that's loaded. There's a lot that goes into that. But that's the goal, in a short podcast here. Start being yourself, just like really getting clear on like what is it that I care about? What do I believe in? What are my morals? What are my values? What is important to me? And then start creating content or AKA just talking about those things and put it online. Talk about whatever it is that you like to talk about. Put it on YouTube, put it on Instagram, like whatever. Start creating that stuff and doing that consistently. If I had done that, 10, 15 years ago and started that, which, I would say 20 years ago, but that was like MySpace age. So like it wasn't really quite there yet. But if I'd started that 10 or 15 years ago,
1 penny
huh?
per use when you'd buy an ad back in the original days, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I had started that 10 or 15 years ago and been doing it consistently up until now, like think about like where that brand would be now. And so the way to be successful with personal branding and content is you can stop thinking about it as this is a marketing tool for the thing that I do right now. Think about it as I am a human on a mission, living a life. And for as long as if you're the type of person that wants to build things in the world, that wants to do something with your life, some people don't, that's fine. But if you're somebody that wants to, just think about it as like, I'm building this from now until the end of my life. And that's it. Like it's just when you broaden that time horizon, it helps you to not think so like short term about it and like I have to do this now and I have to make this happen, but rather or like I have to post every single day, but rather like, hey, I'm just gonna make this part of my life that I create content, that I put it out there, that I'm making an impact on the world, that I'm sharing my message, whatever that message is, and however it changes down the road is totally fine. But I'm gonna commit to doing that from now until forever because it's fulfilling and it's meaningful and it's me impacting the world with who I am.
Yeah. Well, and the beauty of that is you're going to inspire future people to do, you know, kind of explore who they are, and you're going to have a bigger chance to impact those people. I
Yeah,
think Tony Robbins that said you never, you don't realize how much you can accomplish in a decade. We all look at these like 1 year time frames of what we accomplish in the last year. We set these, New Year's resolutions, and the reality is, those goals are important, but it's also important to look back and be like, man, in the last 10 years, look what I actually did accomplish. And it's as long as you're moving forward all the time, it's amazing to see how much we really can get done, how much we change as a person even.
absolutely. You got to give yourself that time.
What's last question here and we wrap this up. I know you got a new book coming out. Tell us a little bit about that book, and I've got one last question for you.
Yeah, so about this book, it's called Create, Don't Capture. And you'll have to read it to find out what that title really means. But it really is a lot of like what we've been talking about in this, and it's for creatives, it's for musicians, for artists, for entrepreneurs, for anybody that wants to build in the world and create something. Like I refer to anybody that's building anything as a creator, and I really believe that we're all creators and we're all meant to do that in different capacities. And the book is really about how to be a creator in today's day and age, how to see yourself as a creator, how to adopt the identity as someone who is a creator, who creates in the world. And then also, then it gets into like some of the tactical work of like how to actually create content and create short form videos and do it in an effective way where you can build an audience and go viral and monetize that audience and make money from it. Because it's like all of that together that's what makes it work. And so there's the tactical advice on how to do that and how to build the business and make money and everything like that. But then it's really a lot of like the deeper meaning of like what it means to become a creator and what how that will impact your life. So if you want to get a copy of that book, you can get it at createdontcapture.com. Like I said, it'll be out in the next couple months. I don't know when this podcast will go live, but it'll either be close to coming out or out already. And so you can go get it over there. So if it's not out already, you can get on the wait list. We are going to be doing a really cool launch for it with all sorts of really cool stuff. So you can check that out over there.
What last question now is what's the if you think of all of the advice you've gotten in your life, what's been the biggest or best advice you were given along this whole journey that you've had so far?
The best advice, man, there's so many,
Question, right?
right? Um, I think I would say the biggest journey that I've been on over the last couple of years that has changed more things for me, and I will tell you right up front, this is not the sexy thing. This is not like a quick tactical thing. Um, this is very like people have seen like the external journey that I've been on and the success and the eyeballs and the numbers and all that kind of stuff that people see. What they haven't seen as much of is the internal journey, the work that I did on myself to change my paradigm, my approach to things, how I think about things. And one of the biggest things that I did working on myself was figure out how to get back to doing what I love because I love it. And what that means is really eliminating the need to be successful, the need to have fame or success or money or attention or recognition or whatever it is that we look for deep down inside that we're actually craving in order to, and it's motivating us to do these things. When you can eliminate that need and really just like stop worrying about that and get back to doing what you love just because you love it, what happens is that you become attractive to all of those things that you wanted. So, what I always say, and I say this in my book as well, is if you're pursuing something, it's because it's running away from you. And so, whatever it is that you are pursuing right now, whatever it is that you're chasing, that you're hustling, that you're grinding to get, whether and it's an outcome, right? If you can learn to just let go of that outcome and say, like, I don't need that. You can want it, that's fine, but don't need it. I'm not craving it. I'm not starving for that thing. And I'm just going to get back to doing the thing that I know I'm supposed to do, that I love to do, and I'm just going to do it consistently from now until forever. What'll happen is you'll make yourself attractive to that thing. So rather than chasing it down, if you're pursuing something, if you're pursuing someone, they would want to run away, right? If you're pursuing something that's running away from you. But if you make yourself attractive to that thing, it starts pursuing you. And that's where you'll see the real success happen.
Awesome. Man, Eric, thank you so much for sharing your time and just your thoughts and advice. And I know that book is going to be amazing. People need to go get that too. So thank you so much. We should definitely continue this conversation. That's very rare that I find a fellow piano player that almost has the exact same story as I do of practicing piano. So I think I
That's
found
awesome.
so thank you so much, and we'll get you on the next one.
You bet. Thank you. Have a good one.
Hey, it's Jason here, and I hope you've gotten a lot of value out of this episode. Be sure to check out our show notes to learn more about our guest today, and if you'd like to support our podcast, there's a few things that you can do to help us grow. First, if you hit subscribe, it will help ensure that you don't miss a future episode. Second, if you'll share it with your friends on social media or send it via email or message, it helps us spread the word as well. And third, if you'll leave an honest review, it really helps with the algorithms so that other people can find our podcast. Finding success and fulfillment in the music industry is possible, and I look forward to seeing you on our next episode.